Hey everyone, Beth from Tasty Yummies, and today we're making my low-carb keto biscuits. I love this recipe. I developed it because I'm of the camp that can't just stuff her face with refined carbohydrates and not feel the after effects. So I think it's really rad when we can come up with options that are just as tasty, super simple, all real food-based, that will kind of replace some of the things that we've grown up with. So this recipe was originally created for my husband. He grew up in Kentucky. He grew up with biscuits and gravy, loved eating that for breakfast. Not in my wheelhouse, so I wanted to create a version that we could both enjoy at home that wasn't loaded with junky ingredients. So these biscuits are amazing. There's simple ingredients and they can be used for savory or sweet. So let's get started. We're gonna begin with 1 tightly packed cup of blanched almond flour. We have 5 tablespoons of coconut flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and half a teaspoon of sea salt. And we're just gonna whisk all of that together. And if you find that your almond flour or your coconut flour are super clumpy, you can sift your flours together just to avoid any sort of clumps of one specific flour, but these were both pretty finely ground, so this is perfect. And once that's mixed together well, we're gonna set it aside. So we're gonna take 4 eggs and separate the whites from the yolks, and we're gonna use the whites in this recipe. Save the yolks for something else. Maybe you make a nice custard, or if you're like us, we save them for the dog, her favorite treats. So now that we have our 4 egg whites separated and in our stand-up mixer, we're gonna turn this on high and whisk the egg whites until soft peaks form. You don't want those big puffy peaks, but soft peaks. So a couple of minutes max. You can also do this with a whisk or a hand mixer. Once you have your soft peaks, we're gonna take the egg whites and put them right into the flour mixture that we already whisked together. And we're gonna fold it in. And don't worry if you lose all of the volume of the egg whites. It's gonna happen no matter what you do, and they'll still serve their purpose. You wanna make sure that you're getting it all mixed evenly throughout. Set that aside. And then we're gonna take 2 whole eggs. And you wanna make sure that your eggs are room temperature here because we're adding them to a melted fat. You can use butter, ghee, or coconut oil, and you wanna make sure your eggs aren't cold and that your fat isn't hot because you don't want the fat cooking the eggs or the eggs cooling off your fat and solidifying it. So we're gonna whisk together 2 tablespoons of, this is melted ghee. You can also use butter or coconut oil, right in with the room temperature eggs. And you'll notice that it's nice and smooth and there's no clumps of fat. And then we're gonna add the egg and fat mixture right to the dough that we already mixed together. I find using a spatula to kind of like turn it over on itself works the best. And as you work this dough, don't be alarmed if it seems very wet. Coconut flour is highly absorbent, so as it sits, we're gonna leave it about 15 to 20 minutes, and as it sits, the coconut flour will begin to absorb a lot of the liquid, and you'll notice it'll start to thicken right, 5 minutes. And now we wait. So now that the biscuit dough has had time to kind of sit and rest and the coconut flour has absorbed a lot of the liquid, you can see that it's thickened quite a bit, and we're just gonna form our biscuits. So this is how I do mine. I kind of eyeball the dough in sort of loosely divided into 4 even pieces. And you can use your hands, and I like to use a lightly greased, I don't know what this thingy is called, a biscuit thingy, a mold. You can also just use an ice cream scoop and scoop 4 even scoops and then lightly press them down and form them by hand. I just find the perfectionist bug in me likes when they're super perfect and all the same size and shape. So we're gonna loosely drop in the dough into our mold and just do a quick form with your hands. And you can kind of perfect them more once you get them all on the tray. And sometimes you'll realize one has more dough than the other, and you can kind of shift them around. And then just keep working through the other 3. We're gonna have a total of 4 biscuits. So now that we have our biscuits perfectly formed, we're gonna just brush on a little more of that melted ghee. Again, you can also use butter or coconut oil or even a little olive oil here. And what's great is this recipe is pretty simple as it is. So sometimes we'll add like a sprinkle of everything bagel seasoning on top just to kind of mix it up and have a little extra flavor. And that's it. They're ready to go in the oven. So after about 15 to 20 minutes, they should be nice and golden brown on top. Beautiful. Head over to tastyyummies.com now to get the full recipe for these low-carb keto biscuits, along with a biscuits and gravy recipe and a roasted balsamic strawberry shortcake recipe, both using these biscuits.